Welcome to this week's edition of the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. Now, this week's guest has not been a guest on his own before, but he was on here recently where he teamed up with June Kim to win a Staccato at Prairie Fire, Nevada. This guy, though, primarily a three-gunner, but he seems to be delving closer and closer into the pistol realm because he also does PCSL as well. So, with that, why don't you help me to introduce Mr. A.J. Anthony to the show? How you doing, AJ?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. Just got off a normal day of work and hanging out now. So,
AJ, if you would, I know you introduced yourself briefly before, but go ahead and do it again, and then I'm going to get into the really hard questions right off the bat.
sounds good. Name's AJ Anthony. I've been shooting competitions for I think it's been about 4.5, 5 years now. Local Arizona shooter. Was able to come up super fast because we probably have the best local scene in the world. Just full stop. I'm super blessed to be in the area that I am because I could just shoot as much as I wanted, basically.
It's called cheating.
Dude, it really is. It's crazy. But primarily shoot 3-gun. Got into that first because I just happened to have the guns, found the community, and it was amazing. So I just shot one match and wanted to do it as much as possible then. And did that for a few years, then slowly started getting into USPSA, started actually learning how to shoot a pistol, not just spray at one like I normally did at most of 3-gun matches. Started getting good at that, and then just want to shoot everything now. It's fun.
I don't know if you've heard any of the other episodes, but I do start with the most difficult questions in the very beginning, and then
Okay.
the rest is pie.
Sounds good.
All right. Hard question number one.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite movie?
Ooh, it has to be John Wick 2. I mean, that's actually what got
2.
So it's funny. I'm going to get a lot of hate for this. I'm not a big movie person at all. I cannot, that movie in the theater might be the last movie I actually sat down and watched in its entirety, which was, I mean, not even joking. That was before I got into shooting because that's the movie that kind of got me into shooting. And I literally since then, I don't think I've had the time or the mental capacity to sit down and watch a movie. I'm just not the kind of person that can, but definitely 2. And it's to the point where I haven't even seen 3 or 4 yet. So I need to sit down and watch those. I know it's blasphemy for someone that does what I do, but
interesting for sure.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Now, I know you say you don't watch too many movies and stuff like that, but do you ever, like for me, my wife and I don't go to the theater a lot, but there are certain movies that I'm like, I have to see that one in the theater first. And for an example, I love the Mission Impossible series. So every time there's a new Mission Impossible, I'm like, I've got to go see it in the theater because the special effects are just so crazy. It's like, I want to see it on a big, massive screen in front of
me. No, I get that. I think if there was one, it's hard because all of the ones that I would have said yes to like 5 years back, like I would have said Star Wars, but I'm of the Disney killed it trope, so I haven't supported anything past that. Probably John Wick 4 probably would have been the one, but even then it's like I'm just not a big crowds guy. I just like staying at home, doing my own thing, and like I get antsy. I play video games too, so I get antsy if I'm just sitting watching the screen doing nothing. So
okay. Well, I mean, you don't have to go opening night either.
Right. Definitely.
Because that's when it's crowded. But lately, I don't know. I'm sure it's similar where you are, but in Phoenix or in that area in Arizona.
Yeah.
Where I'm out here in Virginia, the 2 main theaters we go to, we can buy the tickets online and reserve the seats too. So it doesn't matter now when we can wait till the last second to walk in
as
the
long
theater.
As it's available.
Yeah. Because the seats are going to be there. We know where we're sitting. So.
There's a really nice theater by my house. I think that's you can sit down and get like order dinner and they'll like bring it to you and stuff. And it's like, that's super nice. So that's the one I go to if I am going to one. But like I said, it's been a hot minute. So
Yeah, we have one like that too. They also have a bowling alley there
Hmm.
and a bunch of other stuff. But then they have a balcony on one of their theaters
Oh, that's cool.
where, so if you're an adult, they have a bar upstairs. You get your ticket, you go upstairs, you hang out at the bar. You can have food, drinks, and then you can take your drinks and your food into the theater with you. So
Hmm.
that's a cool one.
Okay, that sounds really appealing, honestly, because you can just hang out, and meander around, not just sit in one place the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for my wife and I mean, we turn it into a date night. We go, we hang
Yeah.
out, have a little meal, little something to eat, and then we go in the theater. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
All right. Hard question number 2. I have found doing this podcast that people no longer read. But if you have read a book, what is your favorite?
Oh man, I'm gonna go with what was it called? Is it around me? It was like a sports science. Uh, shoot, what was it? My default answer is gonna be the Bible because that's one. I'm a pretty devout Christian, so I try to
I actually
consistently
expected
read
that.
that. Yeah, I pretty consist. I somewhat consistently read it, not as much as I should be, but that's a regular for me. But as far as I'm gonna go with my friend recommended this one to me. It's a board business book. I have yet to finish it. I'm like 2/3 of the way through, but it's called The Voltage Effect,
The
and
voltage effect.
it's a book on like how to filter business ideas and like how to make stuff scalable more or less. So if you have an idea, okay, cool, it's a cool idea, but how does that actually become a product, and how does that product actually become like something that you can sell in a large quantity, not just getting stuck at an idea that you make on Etsy and then sell 10 of, and then that's it. How do you actually like get that, give that momentum, so to speak? So it's an
Okay.
interesting book. I need to pick it up again. I got stopped halfway through, but yeah.
Okay. Number 3. I don't know if you're into superheroes. If you are, who's your favorite superhero? If not, who is your favorite historical figure?
Hmm. That's a good one. Not super into superheroes or comics. Just never got into it as a kid. Historical figure. I want to go with the stereotypical answer with either Eugene Stoner or John Moses Browning. Uh, but
I like it.
yeah, I think I'm going to go with one of those. Let's just stick
Okay.
with that. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Hmm.
Now, piggybacking on that, then,
Hmm.
the next one would be your favorite gun and your favorite calibers of all time, but they don't have to be married together. Like your
Sure.
favorite gun could be a 1911 because
Sure.
of John Moses Browning,
Hmm.
or your caliber could be 6.5 Creedmoor because of the
Right.
other aspect of three gun.
Right. I think that's a hard one for me because I actually don't. I'm not one of your typical gun people that has a lot of experience with guns in terms of like a lot of people like grew up around them, shot these things as a kid. Their dad had this one that they gave to them, so they've got a bunch of these and they bought a bunch of those. Like I've only really got the few guns. I started with like basically three crappier versions of all my competition guns and then upgraded them, and that's kind of those are kind of the only ones I have any experience with at all. I'll say I've shot I've shot an M249 that was like a paratrooper model that was full auto. That one was pretty sweet. Um, and that one was just a fun gun to shoot. So I'll probably say that one. And
So the saw.
that was in 223. Yeah, I saw.
Okay.
Favorite caliber probably 12 gauge. I'm a three gunner, so shotgun is definitely what got me into three gun and made me look at it and be like, whoa, what the heck is that? Because everyone's seen like someone shooting a pistol or rifle, but I remember going back to the John Wick 2 reference, I saw that he was training with Taryn to
Mm-hmm.
learn the weapon manipulations and actually make it look realistic and stuff. And then in those videos is a old Keith Garcia video on him teaching how to quad load and watching people quad loading. That's the thing that I saw. I was like, holy crap, what is like it just looks alien to someone that's never witnessed it before. So I just wanted to get into that and I saw it was three gun and then that's when I got into everything and it was fun. So
Quad loading. I thought that
mhm.
was just a heavy squat.
Right. Yep. Oh man.
Has multiple meanings.
Yep.
Probably even has some inappropriate ones that we
Oh,
can't
I'm
talk
sure.
about.
I'm sure.
I'm not aware of any, but I'm sure there is.
It's probably a
All
move in
right.
some dictionary.
So the fifth and final hard question that
Hmm.
I throw out at the guest is: so you live in Arizona. What's the most exciting thing you've done in Arizona?
Hmm. Exciting thing. I don't want to go with just shooting matches because that's just obvious. That's a silly answer. That's just hard. I'm having to like filter. I've lived here my whole life, so that's a lot of memory to go through. Hold on.
Well, now we got to be careful that if your parents were to actually listen to this at some
Oh
point, you don't
no,
want to
no,
give away
no.
any secrets.
There's nothing like that. Um, I am having trouble coming up with something just because there's. I mean,
Okay,
it's
let
basically
me
like
change
what's the
it for
most
you then.
exciting thing. Okay.
All right, let's say I'm going to area 2, but I'm going to
Hmm.
be there for a full week.
Okay.
Dave, you need to go experience this while
Hmm.
you're here in Arizona. What would you say?
I would honestly say, and it's not exciting in any aspect, but I would just say go hiking because we have some of the most different like scenery, and especially if you're coming during area two, it's actually kind of nice during area two. It's not the hot season, so
Right, it's only 100 degrees. It's not 120. Right, I
basically,
get it.
yep. But no, we just have unbelievable views and hiking. Just where whatever direction you go in, you could pretty much drive until you're at city limits or like edge of the city, and then there's probably a really good hiking trail that's super nice and just relaxing, or all the way up to like a super difficult like backpacking trip. So depending on what you have
Okay.
time for, that's I'd recommend doing that kind of a thing in Arizona primarily.
Okay. Yeah, that
Mhm.
would definitely be after the new knee.
Yeah,
So,
it would be. You'd want to do it before area two, too, because you'd be too tired after area two. You wouldn't want to do anything.
gotcha.
Hmm.
All right. Now that we have all the tough questions out of the
Yep.
way, now we know who AJ is.
Yep.
Um, so let's talk about it. You just made the comment that you're not like the typical shooter who you grew up around guns. So
Hmm.
if you didn't grow up around guns, what was your first introduction to guns?
First introduction to guns was probably I think I was 15 or 16, and I had a buddy that it was kind of your normal like hey like he grabbed a few friends that had never shot guns before. I had some history with airsoft as a lot of kids do. I was into that from like probably 10 to 15, 16, sort of a thing. But he just grabbed a bunch of buddies and said hey like you guys have never been shooting before, we're going to go shooting and I'm going to show you how to do this stuff, and it was a good time. He just had like a normal Glock. I think he had an AR that was it had an EOTech with a magnifier behind it, and then like a basic pump shotgun, and it was just a good time. We went to Ben Avery, just shot a bunch of stuff, hung out afterwards. It was good. So that was my first introduction where I was like, ah, these are cool. Okay, you know. Um, and past that, uh, the next experience I had was buying my first one when I kind of got the inkling to. It was just a normal AR. I just wanted to do an AR build. I saw T Rex Arms on YouTube and saw him like doing actual training and stuff, not just like silly range day stuff. And I was like, oh, that actually looks cool. It's like a thing you can get better at. You're not just like shooting stuff for no reason and then putting it away like a lot of videos are. So decided I wanted to try that. Ended up building a Midwest Industries AR just like off of parts. And I went to a gun store and bought a Spikes tactical lower and all the parts I needed to and put it together myself, figured it out. And that was probably the second like introduction to guns.
So were you 21 when you did that?
Yeah. I was living with my buddy at the time, so I think I was 20. I would have been 23, I think. Or no, 22. I think I was.
Okay.
Hmm.
So you build your first AR.
Hmm.
How? So at that point, is that all you had was well, other than the Glock?
Hmm.
Um, did you have a shotgun at
I
that point?
didn't. So there was probably about a year where I was just shooting that. I was just going out into the desert, like Four Peaks, like just what do you call it, government land, and just or BLM
Okay.
land, and then just going and shooting targets. Like I bought made some cardboard targets, was shooting, practicing draws, like the normal kind of like stuff. Was doing that like whenever I could on the weekends for about like a year, and it was getting okay. I was better than your like average person that is into guns, but nothing super noteworthy. So I was just doing that, and then I think it was a little bit into that journey that I saw John Wick 2 and then saw the three gun training, was like, oh my God, that looks like so much fun. Oh wow, there's a lot of it around here. And I did some research. I was like, okay, I need to get a shotgun at some point, and kind of put that on the back burner just because it was just something cool that I saw and didn't know where to go with it then. But eventually, a few months later, I ran into the there's a local shop here that was just having a big blowout sale. There was some guy's collection that they were just selling for him, like they were liquidating it for him. So stuff was super cheap, and I picked up a Benelli M1 for
Hmm.
a really good. I think I got it for like it might have been like $800 or something, and you could tell the thing was
Wow.
never fired because I realized I had to break it in because it was having a lot of feeding issues when I was first shooting it, but I realized that's because it had literally probably never been shot and it had to break in. So then I just from there
Wow.
went to my first three gun match, and it's rest is history kind of a thing. So
So how old were you for your first three gun?
I think I was, what year was that? I want to say that was probably 2018. So I think I would have been 23 or 24, somewhere in there.
Okay, so not too
Mhm.
long after building your AR.
No, not super long at all. Maybe like 6, 8 months.
Okay.
Hmm.
Now, three gun is by far the most expensive of the shooting sports.
Hmm.
I mean, you've got to have shotgun ammo, rifle ammo, pistol ammo, three different guns, gear set up for different things.
Yep.
What made you decide to do three gun instead of something that's a little less expensive?
So I think I didn't even realize that there were other. Three gun was my first experience and my first just my first exposure because I saw the Terran videos, and I saw I just searched that when I was doing some cursory research online. Uh, it was really hard to find information on. It's a very niche thing, so there were like some shooting clubs that had matches, but getting from there to actually figuring out how to sign up for one was kind of a pain, not knowing anybody in the community. Because for those of you that do shoot matches, you know how weird practice score is and how crazy it is to sign up for stuff. And like if you're just someone that's outside looking in, it looks like a complete crapshoot trying to get in, and it kind of is sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to figure all that out solo, I didn't even know pistol only matches existed. I probably would have tried that first had I known. But it just worked out that the first match I could go to that looked like a thing that I wanted to do and that was in my schedule was a three gun match. So that's just what I did. And I just brought what I had. So I had just a literally normal belt, not even anything crazy. I had my old airsoft mag pouches that I used, and I just put shotgun shells in my pockets, and that's what I ran, and just
Okay.
went from there. Because I didn't even know like what I needed gear wise, so I figured I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna talk to people and figure it out if I want to get into this more, and that's what happened. So,
Now, your first match, was it an all day event?
um, not quite all day. It was a local Rio. I found there was one time I found it in practice score. I'm kind of curious if I can find it really quick. I'm not going to look for very long. Um, it was just a local Rio three gun event that they do every month, and I remember it very clearly because it was monsoon season here, and it was crazy pouring rain. Like I had to. It's their Rio's like 20, 30 minutes away from me. I had to pull over halfway getting there because I couldn't drive because the rain
Wow.
was coming down so hard. So in my head, I'm thinking like, okay, there's no freaking way they're still doing this. But I had like made it more than halfway, so I was like, I'm just gonna go see it. At least I'll figure out where the range is for the next time or whatever. But lo and behold, I get there and everyone's doing it like psychopaths. So I was like, okay, cool, I'm in. Like whatever this is, I'm in. And I remember because they have at Rio at least there's the 4 pistol bays, and then there's some seating behind bays 3 and 4 that has some like metal sheeting over it for like shade. And the rain was coming down so hard that you couldn't see. It was like a wall of water, and you couldn't see past it. Like it was, it was raining that much. It was kind of nuts. And I didn't have any rain gear, so I was just getting soaked. But it was, it was a bunch of people around guns. It was fun. Let me see if I can. I don't think I'm gonna be able to find it. Yeah, I see 2018.
So when you finished the match, you were automatically like, "Yep, I'm doing this again."
Oh yeah, it was just one of those like it was probably the most fun I've had doing anything ever. Um, and I was just like, "Do you guys all do this like every other weekend?" Okay, I'm in. Like, I'm gonna figure out how to do this more, and then just do it. But yeah, so I guess it was pretty simple in my monkey brain. It was just that sounds fun. Let's do it.
All right, so you went into your first match not even knowing what you really needed.
Hmm.
So I assume you took your Glock,
Hmm.
you took your AR that you built,
Yep.
and your M1.
Yep.
Okay. At the end of the day, what were you like? Yep, this is good. This is not.
Um, what's funny is I think I ran. I knew I needed quad load caddies, and someone actually let me borrow them for that match, but it was pointless because I had no idea what the hell I was doing. So I grabbed someone else like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. So I just went back to the dump pouch that I
The
had a bunch of
pocket.
shells in. Yeah.
Okay.
Um, so I immediately figured out where I could get some quad load caddies. That was probably the biggest one, but it was also goofy because there were probably for the first 8, no, probably for the first like 8 months to a year, I only had because it was a pistol grip model, so it wasn't a short barrel, it was a 16-inch, but it was a pistol grip with the stock, so you couldn't for those of you that know how quad loading works, you couldn't weak hand load because the pistol grip got in the way. So you could only strong hand load on the shoulder, and you couldn't just go in because you had to go around the pistol grip. So it was just awful. Like it was,
Oh, wow.
it was. I just dealt with it for a while because I didn't know any better, and I wasn't going to spend a whole bunch of money on something before I knew what I was doing. But I just went with it. It was fun. Um, I was shooting in TAC Ops, so I didn't need to buy a bunch of other external gear like I would have if I shot an open, like a bipod or like a secondary red dot or like all that stuff. So really, I think the only thing I upgraded was the quad load caddies for a while, and probably a belt too. I think I used instead of a normal belt, I used a different airsoft tactical belt that was a little stiffer to hold my stuff better. But that was what I used for a little bit for the first couple matches. Um, and then actually going off of that, that's kind of where I got introduced to the community and how cool it is. So the first match was at Rio. Second match was another local range that hosts a lot of stuff called Cowtown around us. Um, that match was actually where I kind of met a lot of the crew that I still roll with to this day, if I can. Like if we all are shooting the same match, we generally try to squad together. Um, One of the dudes in particular, his name's Tony Owens. Just I still call him my like 3-gun sensei, so to speak, because it was like my second match. The group he was with was super cool. I can still remember it like it was yesterday. Him, Kim, Cody, Kayla, like just the regular crew that they were all rolling with was super fun. And the second match, I think I did at Cowtown, so they were all monthly matches. Um, I ended up not. I might have gotten first in TAC or something, or I did pretty well in TAC for my second match, and he kind of made the comment like, "Oh, you tactical guys aren't supposed to be beating us competition guys," because I had like my old airsoft gear on, and I kind of looked tactical. Not even. It was just he was joking more than anything, but it was just funny. So he was like, "Hey, like just come over to my house sometime and let me like build you a rifle. You look like you're getting into it. You're good." Like, and I was like, "Oh shoot, okay." So and this is like the second time I'm hanging out with this guy, and then it like works out. I go to his house. He helps me figure out stuff I need. He's got all sorts of stuff that he just gave me that I needed. I think I still have the rifle. Yeah. So this was like oh, my first rifle. He just built me an upper with a better handguard, better barrel, and
Okay.
he was all like he just set me up basically with the rifle, and I this thing still
Is
probably
that a
shoots really
break on
good.
the end?
It is this one. This is an MD SJC Titan. This wasn't on the gun. I just had a normal like Arrow
Okay.
VG6, I think was the one I had for a while. I forget what we put on there when he built me this, but I don't think it was this. Um, but no, he just had like because he's the kind of guy that was like a barrel has 4,000 rounds and he replaces it because he wants it to be more accurate. So he has just like a few of them laying around that are doing nothing but collecting dust. So he just threw one in a random upper for me, and that was that. So he's been one of my best friends to this day. I still go to him if I need to build something and need help figuring something out, or we're just hanging out shooting matches together. But no, this is still the rifle. So you can see how beat up it is just from. And actually, this is my
Oh yeah.
original. This is my original lower too uh, from that Midwest Industries gun. You can see how beat up
Oh
it is just
wow.
from sling
Okay.
manipulations and stuff. Um,
Right.
but yeah, this thing is still good too. I haven't shot it in a long time, but
So what? All right. Now, I mean, I don't know if you still shoot a Glock, but
mm,
um, with the rifle,
mm-hmm,
obviously you've kind of upgraded, quote unquote.
mm-hmm.
But what was your initial optic that you had on there, and what do you have on there now?
Um, what did I have on there? I think I had. I actually might have it all here.
You had no idea this was show and tell.
That's the Viper. So I had a one of the old original um, Vortex. It's the model that's below the Viper. The Viper is kind of their midline model. Um,
Okay. So like an entry model Vortex.
yeah,
Okay.
they recent the Strike Eagle. That's what it was.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, one of the old Strike Eagle 1-8s, I think. And this was before they redid them. They're actually really good now. They weren't super good back then. Um, but it worked, and it was what I had, and that's what I ran for a while. I didn't actually change that for a couple years. I changed to a Viper PST Gen
Okay.
2 like a couple of years in, just because it was a clearer, it's just better glass, but it wasn't that much different. So
Still an LPVO.
still an LPVL,
Okay.
just a little better.
What's the range on it? Still 180?
Um, yeah, it was actually, what is it? Where did I just throw it? It's still this one. This one was a 1-6 actually. Yeah,
Oh,
so just
okay.
six.
All
Um,
right.
then for a while, uh, I've had just what you see in that picture right there is just the God, I'm blanking, the Razor Gen 2, which is literally just a better version of this. Like even the reticle's the same, the magnification's the same. It's just a better version of the Viper. And then yeah, that's still what I run today, and might be changing that soon. We'll see. But it's still been good.
Okay. What's in your three gun stuff?
Mm-hmm.
What's the farthest you've engaged a target during a three gun match?
Mm. It's probably Texas three gun. We had to shoot. I want to say there was a 700-yard target. That was a full size Zip 6 steel at 700 yards. So that was
You're gonna need to send that back to get repaired.
no, I don't know when I'm going to throw this thing on a gun. Their warranty's good though, so you can just send it back. It's good.
Well, and the reason I'm asking is
Mm-hmm.
1 to 6 is a pretty low, a lower
Mm-hmm.
power. How was it using that 6 power at 700 yards?
Oh, it's honestly very. It's very doable and fine for three gun targets. There's a match that we shoot locally every month called Accurized AR. It's at Cowtown, the same range I was just talking about, and they'll be putting stuff anywhere from uh 200 150 yards that are like a one MOA target, all the way out to like 700 yards that's a full size steel. And 6x I've always felt is plenty for that kind of target. um it's definitely the minimum. If you're going 4x, you're having a hard time seeing stuff, but 6x I've always felt is kind of the sweet spot, especially because with the Razor, me being in TAC Ops and now modified, we don't have the 45 dot, so we need a scope that's daylight bright essentially for the dot that we have to aim with when we're shooting at close paper. And that's one of the only models on the market that's really bright enough for Arizona, because a lot of other scopes, it doesn't really matter how bright it gets, because um, every scope is bright enough for 90% of places. But when you're talking about Arizona and you're like how bright it is outside with the like light tan sand that we have, like not even contrasting with the cardboard targets, you need a crazy bright center dot. Like the Razor's one of the brightest ones there is, and it's still barely bright enough for where we're at on max power. So
Okay, so you're not talking about the brightness or the light gathering capability of the scope. You're
no,
actually
just
talking the actual dot
mhm,
itself.
the dot
So
itself.
it doesn't
And
get washed out.
right, so you can actually use
Okay.
it. And then as far as long range goes, I've always felt 6x is enough for 3 gun. uh Definitely, I totally understand if someone wants 8 instead of 6. There's a lot of people that move to the 10, and I get it if you're an open shooter, um because you can kind of set that magnification on whatever you want and just use your red dot for everything else. But I think the 6 is still probably the best one for right now. I'm working on some stuff where I'm going to be changing to an 8, but we're going to see how that goes. I don't even have the stuff ordered yet, so I don't want to talk about it, and I don't have any experience with it. But 6 has
Okay.
been fine for 3 gun because you're shooting at full targets, and usually there it makes it a lot easier to spot too. A lot of people get sucked into the reticle at 10x, and you can like it can be very hard to lose, or very easy to lose where you're pointing and where you're at. So 6x kind of keeps you from that too.
Well, I mean, then that part of my question was going to be, do you shoot with one eye or both eyes open?
Long range, definitely. I'll open both eyes when I'm kind of like adjusting to find the target, and then I'll close one eye to shoot. And then close stuff, so at 1x or like 1 to 2x, I have both eyes open. If it's like a steel that it's like medium distance that I'm at 3x, I'll probably close one eye.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the average for just a regular three gun?
Mm-hmm.
What range would you expect to engage rifle targets? Like 300, 400?
That is actually super range dependent and location dependent, because I
Okay.
could tell you Arizona had Cowtown and Rio specifically. Rio pretty consistently has at least 1 or 2 targets at like 350, maybe 400, and then Cowtown pretty consistently will have a target or two at 4 or 500 for whatever, if they throw long range in the stage. Um, but I know plenty of places in the U.S. that the longest they have is 100 yards for their bays, and then that's the max you're going to get. So they're going to make the target smaller, but it's only going to be 100 yards. So it's really range and location dependent, depending on where you're at.
Okay.
Because I know in the locals at Texas, they throw 500, 600 yards or stuff there all the time for their local matches. So
Okay. So there's going to be multiple questions with that then.
okay,
And I want to go, we're going to travel back in time a few minutes. And you
sure.
said the guy who's a good friend who built
Hmm.
that upper, he changes out his barrels every 4,000 rounds to
Hmm.
for maximum
Yeah, 4 to
accuracy.
6,000. Yeah.
So, what type of accuracy are you guys trying to target in order to be accurate enough in a match?
I think that it really comes down to the person and how like anal and picky you want to be with your stuff. I'm of the more picky variety, and even going into it, I kind of understood the more accurate the gun is, the less accurate I have to be. Like the more slop I
Yes,
have as a shooter. So
correct.
I was always kind of, and there was a whole journey in there too, where like I think the first 2 years, year and a half, I wasn't hand loading. I was just buying Walmart ammo. But somewhere in there, Tony's also got me into reloading, taught me everything I needed to know about it, gave me like the basic stuff to start doing it. And then I kind of went on my own uh, journey with that, figuring out how to do load workups and ladder testing and like figuring out stuff for different guns and blah, blah, blah. Um, but I would say starting out, don't worry about it. 3 MOA, which is about a 3-inch group at 100 yards, that's going to be perfectly acceptable for 3-gun and what you're trying to do. And most guns with factory ammo, 3 MOAs, a lot of people would call that a bad group, and it's certainly not a good group, but it's definitely going to get you where you need to go. Because people overestimate like a 3 MOA group at 500 yards, that's 15 inches. That's still less wide than the target is most of the time at that distance. So you're fine. You don't need to overthink it. But I'll probably typically shoot for MOA or sub MOA by a little bit in my ARs nowadays, just to give myself everything I can.
Okay. I started off in long range stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, I see that.
I mean, that's just an off. I actually traded for this. So, this is a Savage BA10 and 6.5 Creed. And
Okay.
my hand loading, I got it down to 0.32 MOA.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, if it doesn't shoot sub half MOA,
Mm-hmm.
then
For PRS specifically, you
I'm
mean?
not, well, just anything from 100 to wherever I want to
Mm-hmm.
engage, because I know that I am the weakest link
Yep.
in that system. So the more accurate I can make that thing, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
then it gives me more to work with for me
Yep.
and environmental
Yep.
conditions that I run into.
Totally. No. And I guess it shows you how much I literally noticed how picky I am with my stuff, because that's an auto trickler that I've had for a couple of years now, and that's been great. So that's most 3-gunners do not have an auto trickler. I will tell you that right now. So that is the level of picky I am with my ammo for sure. So
It takes me 1 minute for every round that I load.
yeah, I believe that. I think I timed
Yeah.
it. It I do mine in batches of 100, and it took me from start to end. I think it takes me about 2 hours for every 100,
There you
because I
go.
have to like resize prime, and then I chamfer and deburr a case mouth, and then trickle this, and then hand load. So
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a painstaking process. It's
Yep.
not like 9 mil where you just put it in the
Oh no.
machine and let it go.
Yep.
You know.
No, that's yeah. I'm one of those. I'm one of those people that never loads in big batches because I'm lazy and I just load right before the match. So I just load 200 rounds before, like the night before a match, and it's fine. I need to do better at that, but yeah, you can just do that. You can't do that with long range.
All right, so I want to talk about a little bit of training with, and I'm sticking with rifle right now
Mm-hmm.
because I think in 3 gun, I don't think the shotgun would be that difficult. The pistol wouldn't be that difficult, but the rifle brings in some interesting factions of shooting that
Mm-hmm.
most people don't run into.
Sure.
And those are your environmental conditions. So
Mm-hmm.
for
I'll
you,
say I'll say before we move on from that, noting with shotgun, the biggest upgrade I ever did was just getting the loading port cut by someone that was competent. That took
mm,
my game from 0 to 100 really quick with shotgun. Like learning how to quad load, and like you can work around a stock port or like a really crappy port, but I sent mine into Roth, and I still actually shoot. My M1 is actually still my primary shotgun that I shoot in matches, and it's been completely redone a bunch of times. But I send it into Roth Precision. They don't actually do custom stuff anymore. I think they just sell their own M2 model that they just make from scratch, and you just buy the gun from them. But back when they were doing gunsmithing, I sent it into them, and they did an awesome job. So that like took my shotgun from 0 to 100 really quick. And then
okay.
for pistol you can get away with a lot depending on how good you are. I was not good. I hated the Glock for a while, and I ended up just buying an STI. I just went full bore, and then that improved my game. I'll say don't jump straight into that, because you definitely should figure out where you're deficient as a shooter first, and it's actually easier to do that with a bad gun. But once I figured that out, I was like, okay, I'm sick of this Glock. I need something better. So I went with an STI.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, back to
But
ARs. Sorry.
yeah, no, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get back into the. I don't know how much we'll talk about the shotgun, Um,
Hmm.
but we'll get into some more pistol stuff. But the rifle, so out west, you have some pretty thick with the heat that you guys have.
Hmm.
You get a lot of heat coming off the ground. I'm sure that if you're not at least kneeling, it's almost impossible to shoot by laying on the ground because of the mirage at times. But
Hmm.
what type of training do you do? One, to get comfortable with the wind,
Hmm.
and two, mirage.
The wind one is actually a really big one for me right now, and one that I don't actually have a good answer to. Uh, it's very difficult to, I guess, the days I practice, hopefully there is wind if I'm practicing long range, so I can practice that. Most of the time there isn't. Arizona isn't a crazy windy place, especially the time of day that I can usually make it out to practice. It's usually like late afternoon, early evening, so it's usually not windy by that time of day.
Okay.
Um, but the one thing I probably am going to start doing is having a buddy turn. This was a tip I got from, I can't remember who I got this from actually. But basically, you have a friend turn your windage any number of between like basically between 0 and maybe 1.5 mils, um, without you looking, and then you have to shoot, see where your thing is or where your bullet ends up impacting, and course correct immediately, and that lets you get some good like shot calling in, because it's not like uh, it's very hard in three gun specifically to see trace. Like that's a big thing in PRS when you can actually see your trace and
Right.
kind of self adjust from there. We usually can't do that based on like with the magnifications and the targets we're shooting at. So we need to just be able to course correct a lot of the time with just off of impact. So that's a kind of good practice method, is having a buddy just not tell you how much he's adjusting it, and then try to hit the target on the follow up shot based on the splash. Um, but with the wind one's hard. I don't have a lot of practice with that. I think most of the practice I have is just reading Mirage and then trying to make a shot call based on that. So the different angles depict like varying degrees of wind values, and just trying to go off of that is probably the real experience I have based on that.
Okay.
There was a second part to your question though. I think you said
It was the mirage and wind, what type of
right.
training you're doing for that stuff. But
Yeah.
if you don't have the wind, that makes it
Hmm.
difficult to actually get out there and practice reading it, because that's where, like this picture right here is the 1,000 yard line at
Hmm.
Quantico. And, we had a couple of cider rounds we could use, but
Cider. Oh,
yep.
cider. I
So,
never mind. I know. Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
I
So,
heard what you said as like apple cider, and I was like, cider? What? Oh, never mind. Okay.
yep. Yeah. And you drink a little bit and then you're better.
Yep. Yep.
But I mean, even then, you're still making a wind call before
Hmm.
you fire a single shot, so that you're at least close.
Right.
But without wind, man, that's a difficult thing to do.
So
So,
it's definitely a thing that's come up before, because when you talk about places like here, it's hard to, because we usually have a really good dirt berm, probably more than 80% of the time, that you can see a splash off of, and kind of whether or not you can see or feel the wind, you see you're missing for like 3 feet right, and you have to adjust. But there's places like Texas that's been a struggle, because you're shooting at an IPSC that's just in either a field of grass on the other side of a ravine or into trees,
mm,
and you can see the IPSC, but you're never going to see the splash. So you do have to be able to course correct based on where you think the wind is and start walking your shot in. Um, so it's a hard skill. That's probably the biggest skill that's like, or the hardest skill that there is to master in three gun, I would say.
okay. And that's why I was asking earlier too. Like, what do you think the average is? Because out to 300 yards,
Hmm.
350,
Yeah,
not too bad.
yeah, I'm never holding more than edge of target for a C zone at 300. So
Okay. What are you running bullet wise out of your rifle?
it's actually a very interesting question right now. So for the last while, I've been just running a 77 SMK. out of my bullet
Wow,
or
heavy.
out of my round. Yeah, there's a lot of guys that will go. There's like a few subsets of people. There's the subset that only shoots 55 at everything, and they make it work. And
Ugh.
I wish them the
Okay.
best. I can't do that. I can't
I'm not a
process that.
fan.
Uh-uh. And there's the subset of people that will shoot. They'll have their hoser ammo and then they'll have their precision ammo. I'm one of those people, and then 77 is just what I landed on, just because it was. There's some places I think that it's actually in the rules that 77 is the heaviest, because you can get an 80, you can get a 90 for 223, but I think they keep it. They limited it at a 77 because that's kind of the most popular heavy one, and they don't want it to get ridiculous with like how people are gaming their rifles, because you could probably get your AR chambered in some goofy 223 Wildcat load where there's a bigger case and it's like a 100 grain 223,
Right.
like that kind of crap. So I think they just did that to keep that out of it. But 77 is what I've been shooting, and 55 grain, just whatever 55 grain I can get a hold of. Berries is what I currently shoot, but I can get it at a good price, and it's been pretty consistent. But right now I'm actually transitioning into trying to do some load development for IPSC style shooting instead of three gun, where accuracy matters a lot more. You're shooting 300 yards ish on paper, a lot of the time, and your recoil management matters a lot more, because it's not just one steel you have to hit. You're usually putting two on target as fast as you can. So follow up shots matter, and the consistency with where your zero is, because if you have two different ammos, you're only able to zero for one, and you're obviously zeroing for the one with more accuracy. But with IPSC, you need to have them both very consistent, so it's finding a combination of stuff that actually zeros consistently. And I've been shifting to. I'm probably in the mental shift for now of shifting to 52 grains SMK boat tails for my hoser, and then 69 grains to lessen the recoil impulse and kind of have a flatter trajectory. It's getting into the weeds a lot, but I think that's where I'm going right now, but not sure yet. I actually just did the first load workup uh literally yesterday of all of that. So I'm in the first round of testing all that stuff and seeing what I like. So
So I want to get back to, because I was going to say, to me, 77's pretty heavy,
mhm.
reduces how much you can put in the casing. I feel like 69 is a very good. It's right between that 62 and the
Mhm.
77. You know what I mean? Like it's a
Yeah.
good, happy. You can get some good velocity, especially if you don't have much windage training. You can really kind of spice up that round a little bit to
Mhm.
help with that.
I think the reason I ended up on 77s, if I remember right, I the advice I got from my one buddy Tony, who was telling me how to like do my initial, just the initial guide that taught me everything. Just to buy a bunch of factory ammo of different brands and different weights, and see what the gun liked more, and then just
Mm,
try to replicate that. And
okay.
initially, at that point, the 77 was the only one that it ended up liking, because I had a bunch of 69 grains and a bunch of 77 grains, and it seemed like the 77s just consistently grouped more. It Looking back,
Okay.
it probably was due to the twist rate that I had and the length and a couple other stuff. I didn't know that at the time, so I just went with that. And then at that point, it was kind of a cool. This works. Why am I going to change it? You know?
And this is what people don't, if they're not shooting three guns. So if you're not
Mhm.
shooting beyond 300 yards,
Right. Oh, you never
people
have to
don't
get into any of this, and your life is so much
exactly.
easier. Trust me. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's so
this
much
is
easier.
where I think as a three gunner for you. Okay, so you had to learn how to manipulate the shotgun.
Hmm.
The pistol's got to be the easiest.
I actually, I would argue that for three gun rifle, that is, I think where am I going with this? Two things. I think it's really more close. I would consider the sport more four gun than three gun, because I think close range rifle and long range rifle are two completely different things. So in my head, I treat
Okay.
it as four different skill sets. And I think pistol, it's it's between pistol and rifle, but I would say pistol probably has the highest skill ceiling out of all of them, and it's the easiest for people to not get away with not being as good at it and still do okay. But I think the majority of the places that I've gained time on people at my major matches has been my pistol work, because I started putting like about 80 to 85% of my time into pistol, and that's where it helped me. Is where I think.
Okay.
Mhm.
I could see that. I feel like it takes less training to be accurate enough with it. But yeah, I could see where
Mhm.
more training you can speed up
Yeah.
and help yourself for sure. Now, so would you shoot PCSL too? So would you
Mhm.
consider that short range then?
Yeah, I would consider that
Okay.
close. I think the farthest thing they ever have. So the mindset behind their course layout is they want people to basically be able to shoot PCCs too if they don't have ARs. Um, so the target size is always going to be limited to something that a PCC can pretty reliably hit if it's a decent one. I think they always have the farthest hardest thing is usually like they'll have 100 yard, maybe 8 to 10 inch steel is probably the smallest MOA size, and then they might put something at 150 that's like a full size USPSA target. It's a steel, so not hard targets. Nothing I ever even have to hold on. I'm just putting the dot on the center, so it's not far at all.
Now, do you always use your 5.56 in PCSL or do you use a PCC at times?
Yeah, I the 223 is primarily what I use and
Okay.
everything. I have a PCC that I rarely shoot. There's one match a year, AZ PCC State Championship, that everyone in the the local area kind of gears up their PCCs for that one time a year. If you're not a normal PCC shooter, but other than that, the 223 I think is way faster. It's way easier to manipulate for me at least, and then the recoil is a lot less, so I'm just used to it more.
Oh, okay.
Hmm.
Wow, I'm kind of shocked that the 223 has less recoil than the 9.
Hmm.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting.
I think PCC has a bigger user base that's gone into the weeds a little more, I think, with their load tuning and their like buffer system weight tuning. But I think that there's a smaller subset of people with ARs, I think, that get into the weeds just as much. And once you do that, I think the AR is a lot flatter shooting. So the one I have right now, actually I can go grab it and show you. Hold on 1 second.
Sure. I love a,
So
a show and tell.
yeah, no, I have it all pretty
I
readily
love it.
available. So this is a 18-inch AR. This is one
Okay.
I'm building specifically again for the IPSC style shooting, because the close stuff, the close fast stuff, isn't as common and tight as it is in 3 gun. So 18 inches is what I went with. But Unrivaled is one of my big sponsors. It's two of my really good buddies in the sports, Kyle Litzy and Zach Smith. They designed a couple of really good parts that I think you could probably put these two parts on any decent gun, and you're going to be probably 85% of the way there with recoil in terms of how much you can get rid of. But this thing, it's a tunable brake, so it's got a really good port design or baffle design, so it's negating as much as it can in terms of the rearward
Okay.
recoil, and it's also got
Before.
tuning ports all
Oh.
around the baffles so that you can actually tune it to your preference.
All right. How are you tuning that though?
So essentially, you'll have a target that's pretty far and hard. I'll probably say 6 inches at 100 yards, like a 6 inch steel target at 100 yards. You'll line it up, shoot one, and you're just watching where the dot goes. You try to get into your most natural shooting position for how you're shooting, and just take one shot, see where the dot goes, and then you basically unplug the opposite. So if my dot moves right, I'm gonna or no, I'm sorry, you unplug the same. So if your dot's moving right, you unplug that baffle
To
to
counter.
counteract it. And you just go and
Okay.
tune. And there's actually you can get a little more granular or a little finer with it too, because they have plugs, and then I'm not going to be able to show this, but they actually have through screws, so it just constricts. It's not actually just fully open, but it's not fully plugged. And then
Hmm.
they also have a really good buffer design that's I think the best on the market, that negates a whole lot of recoil. And then you start getting into, this is another company I'm starting to talk a lot with, but rifle speed, their gas block, as honestly, any adjustable gas block is what you need to start tuning recoil. Um, because you'll just most rifles are insanely overgassed, and that's where the I think ARs have a bad rep of like having a lot of recoil. As soon as you can tune your gas to be as much as it needs to be, depending on the load you're shooting, you get way less recoil. Um, the operating system also matters. So this is a rifle length. As soon when you're talking about mid length, the pressure spike is a lot higher in the gas impulse. So you have a lot sharper of a kick, whereas with a rifle length, it's a lot smoother of a gas flow into the port and into the carrier to cycle it.
Okay.
And then I've also got a titanium carrier that's made by RCA. They're a super cool company. I don't work with them. They just make good stuff. It's a ultra lightened titanium. It weighs nothing. It feels like an alien part. You're just waving it around and it doesn't weigh anything. So it's just less reciprocating mass. So all that combined with like a good load that's like minimum feet per second that you need, and I can double tap a target pretty consistently, like a 10-inch 12-inch target at probably 150 yards.
I grabbed some cards because it escapes me. There's a company out there that
Mm-hmm.
makes a dual buffer system,
A
and I
dual
cannot think.
buffer system.
Yeah, I
Okay.
cannot think of their names right now.
I don't know if I've heard
Um,
of a dual one. I'm not sure what that would even mean.
well, what it means is there's literally like a two-stage buffer.
Okay.
So so it takes the initial impulse, and then there's a secondary buffer that absorbs recoil. So they take a 300 Win Mag,
Mm-hmm.
drop it down to like a 308 recoil,
Okay.
and they take a 308, and it's now the equivalent of about a 5.56 or a 223
Okay.
recoil. So with a dual buffer system, and I'm just wondering now. I've got their card. I'm trying to from from a year
Oh,
ago
there you go.
shot
Yep.
show.
Mm-hmm.
I literally stopped by their booth because someone had mentioned
Mm.
their dual system, and I actually spoke with the guy. The
Was it
guy
a
must have
roller
had,
delay maybe, or was it
man. I
something else?
wish I could remember. Nemo.
Right.
There you go. That's it. Nemo
I
Arms.
Let me look that up. I've heard of that. I think.
Yeah, new evolutionary military ordnance. Nemo. NemoArms.com.
Hmm.
But they have a like a two-stage buffer system they have created. And it is, I had the guy take it apart and show it to me there at the SHOT Show last year.
Mm-hmm.
Very innovative, pretty cool. One of the guys who started the podcast with me, Leo,
Okay.
he's the one who was like, dude, you need to stop by there because I have one of their guns and it's pretty amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
I'm wondering if they or somebody has like a dual or a two-stage buffer system
Mm-hmm. I'll say
that would really soften it.
the unrivaled one. I would say in my testing has been. I've tried pretty much under the sun. That one's been the best one I've been able to find. And I'm not just saying that because they're my friends. Like I've compared it to the SCS. It's a lot. It's very dependent on user preference, so it's very subjective, depending on what kind of recoil impulse you like. Uh, and there's kind of as a two stage you could say because there's two different springs. There's the light spring that takes it goes the full length of the recoil cycle, and then it's got kind of a short like 3-incher heavy duty one that kind of makes it so it doesn't bottom out and snaps forward faster. So depending on how you want to define two stage, but they're kind of the ones that I've kept coming back to, um, that have been the most consistent. So I think, like I said, I think I can pretty consistently double tap like a 12 to 15-inch target at 150 yards on any
Okay.
given day once I get my ammo ready and stuff.
With your AR.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So now at what point did you go, okay, moving on to the pistol, did you go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I need to get better. The Glock's not working.
That's a
I
funny.
need
So I
something.
probably had the Glock for about a year and a half, 2 years maybe, if I'm remembering correctly. I remember it very specifically. There was one stage at Cowtown. You did a whole. you shot a bunch of rifle, did some shotgun, ended with pistol, so you were kind of gassed at that point. Um, and I'm shooting tack, so I've got, I forget what iron sights I had in my Glock at that point. I had upgraded from stock to something else, but there was a, it wasn't a ridiculously hard target. It might have been like a 10-inch circle at 30 yards, like not nothing crazy, like a hard target. But the whole point was like you get gassed, you're kind of winded. It's hard to hit a target after that. I think I threw 3 mags at it and I couldn't hit it. Um,
Wow.
and I just literally ran out of ammo and had to stop. And I'd been considering getting a new pistol at that point. Um, and to be fair, like if you gave me a Glock, I could probably hit that 10 out of 10 times now. That I'm better at shooting pistol with my stock Glock, but at that point I was like, okay, I'm done. I couldn't hit that thing, and it was a Gen 4 Glock 19, so the trigger pull was just, it's the most atrocious out of all of them. Like the Gen 5 is actually pretty okay. The Gen 3's a little bit less okay, but kind of okay, and the Gen 4 is just complete crap. It's just awful. And I had stock everything, so I was just like, okay, I just want to buy the thing that everyone else has, that everyone's beating me with, and I'm just gonna go with that. So yeah.
And now there are a bazillion, and that's a technical word,
Mhm.
a bazillion accessories for Glocks out there. Is there not a trigger that will work that makes the
I
Glock better?
I'm sure there is. I just was so sick of it, and I just wanted it. I'll be honest. I just wanted it, like the fancy nice thing that my
Did
buddies had.
did the thought ever come into your mind that you would throw the gun at the target and knock it down?
Yes,
Okay,
for
good.
sure.
All right, you're human. I
If
like it.
if only not because it was such a far target that I probably couldn't throw it that far. But yeah, that I would have probably. uh,
Oh, that's funny. All right, so you got the STI now called.
mhm,
So we won't say what that normally stands for,
mhm.
um, because I don't want to disparage staccato.
Right.
But now they're staccato. So when you got that, what was when you got your
Mhm.
STI in and you took that to the range? Now, what was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. It was great trigger. I never really had to do anything to the gun. I also wasn't super experienced. So that was this was before the staccato rebrand. So they only had STIs, and it was their iron sighted. It was an Edge is the model, but just a great gun out of the box. It still kind of disappoints me. I get why they went to the tactical market. There's way more money, and the way they're doing stuff is great, and their business has really
Right.
exploded. But the old STIs, they were really good just for the money too. Because I think I paid 2,000 for mine, like 4 5 years ago, and or no, it would have been like 3 or 4 years ago at this point. Just a fantastic gun. I still have it, so I don't shoot it as much because I'm in shooting red dot stuff now, but it's just a good gun.
So what are you shooting with a red dot now?
So right now, I actually have a Voodoo Gunworks 2011. They just started manufacturing 2011s, and honestly, some of the best value 2011s I think you're going to be able to find out there for the money right now, compared to everything else. I think, yeah, they just Harry's their gunsmith, super cool guy. I've talked to him a bunch, and they just do good work. They can get you pretty much anything you want as far as like functionality model wise, and I think their wait list is increasing. When I got it, the wait list wasn't too bad because I got in pretty early, but they're just very solid guns for the money.
You said Voodoo Arms?
Voodoo Gunworks, so it's actually the same Voodoo that makes
Okay.
22 LR custom bolt guns. Um,
Okay.
Within the past like year and a half year, they started making a 2011 line, and they're getting really popular for the money because I think people are sick of spending or having to spend 8 to 9 grand on an Atlas or Infinity, because even Atlas didn't used to be as much as it was now. Like in the last 2 years, it's probably gone up 30, 40% price. So people are just, I was in the point where I can't, I don't have that kind of money to throw at something. So I needed something else, and Voodoo's been great.
I bought a Rival Steel, and that's the most I've ever spent on a pistol.
Those are great guns, man. For
Yeah,
the
but
money,
they
if you're just
don't they
getting
don't
into it.
shoot out to 2,000 yards.
Hey, the Voodoo doesn't either. So I spent way more on the Voodoo than you did on the Rival. So, oh god, that's funny.
That's how I'm like, okay, how far is this going to get me? Because if it's
Right,
only getting me to 50 or 60 yards, I'm not spending that much money on it.
right, definitely.
So,
As you know, though,
oh,
it's the difference of like I want all of the problems to just be me. I don't want any of it to
I
be the
get it.
gun. So yeah, you for sure get it though. But
Oh yeah, yeah, I
mhm,
totally understand it. I mean, and look, whether it's everyday carry, you're just looking for something that functions well
mhm,
and shoots well enough out to 15, 20 yards.
mhm,
Hopefully, you never have to shoot beyond that.
mhm.
But or even USPSA, I don't to shoot carry optics. I don't need a $4 or $5,000
No,
gun. A
not at all.
$500 gun with a red dot works just fine.
Mhm.
So, what are you running for red dots?
Red dots. I think I'm putting right now. I mostly have SROs on my stuff.
Oh, you
Um,
think?
yeah, I think.
Is there something sneaking in there that you're not
No,
aware of?
so I I was getting into red dots when I was doing that. The SRO was really the mainstay. But
Okay.
recently the Holosun comp has come out. Also, there's some Vortex dots on the market now. I think they're coming out with another one. I'm not sure. They just came out with one that's pretty comparable. I think there's another. I'm not sure. Um, so those could start to be mainstays, but I guess when I was buying my dots with the SRO was the only option. I've bought a comp and I actually think it's really good for the money. So if I had to buy another one, I'm not sure what I would get, but it would be probably an SRO or a comp. So yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
And a lot of companies are now coming out with
Hmm.
competition size dots, like you said, Holosun just did it.
Hmm.
Canik is now coming out with their own
I heard of,
line.
yeah, I haven't seen that one, but I heard about it. Yeah.
I played with it at SHOT Show. It's nice. It's a
Okay.
little bit bigger than the SRO size for $250.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's going to
That's,
be half price of an SRO, same
hmm,
size, little bit of different shape. It's kind of odd. Some people don't like it aesthetically,
hmm.
but apparently it
I actually didn't
um,
see that
they
when I was at
engineering
Shot
more structure strength into it with the way they did it. But I mean, Siley Bull, that thing's ginormous.
Show. Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen that. That thing's
I
huge.
haven't seen
Like,
that one in person, but I've seen pictures. Yeah.
yeah. So it just seems like everybody's getting into the competition dot. I mean,
Hmm.
I even have on my steel Canic, I've got
Hmm.
a Viridian
Yeah.
RX-35, and it's
Mhm.
the same size. Whoop, let me go this way,
Yep.
but
Yeah,
not in
that's
my
pretty
head.
pretty SRO similar. Yep.
Yeah, yeah, very similar, but
Hmm.
it has a green dot. I see green better than I do red, so
Hmm.
it works better for me.
Hmm. No, there's a lot of options right now.
Yeah, and then on my plastic rival, I have an SRO. I
Right.
do love the SRO.
It's
So
it's funny that on the plastic one you have the more expensive optic.
I
I don't know
know.
why that's funny, but it just is.
Well, I was like, I'm not taking this thing off again. I'm leaving it on. I'm just going to get something different. And I was like, I'm getting a green one, dang it.
Yeah.
So,
I tried the whole green thing because I actually have a really bad astigmatism, funny enough, which there's a whole story in there. Short story is I shot tack because I thought red dots were just crap, but I didn't know it was because of my eyes. So that's why I never bought a red dot. I went to
oh
the
wow.
store originally when I was getting my Glock and was looking at red dots. I was like, why do people want these things? They all look garbage. They're all just like bloomed out and like, how am I going to aim with this? The gun store employee wasn't like knowledgeable enough to be like, dude, that's your eyes. Like that's not.
Mm.
So I found that out like 2 years down the line from my buddy telling me like, no, that's your eyes, man. Like dots aren't supposed to look like that. I was like, oh my god, this is why you have them. Oh my gosh, well, so that's a whole
Okay.
other thing. But
I'm going to read something off of your Instagram real quick.
okay,
It says pro three gunner. What does that mean?
I think there's a lot of different definitions of the word professional
Okay.
um in the industry. I actually what's funny is that I've just had enough people tell me personally that they think I am one that I felt obligated to put it on my Instagram page because it felt like not sandbagging if I didn't have it there, but it just felt right to label myself as that, where I have some major match wins under my belt now. I think a lot of people would define that as pro. I would actually more have the definition of professional as someone who makes their income off of that, um, almost solely and or primarily, which I definitely do not. But that being said, that's also a way higher barrier to entry for being called a pro. So I just label it myself as that, because there's a lot. I think the majority of people probably would call me that, and it's just a simple way to kind of succinctly say what I like to do and how good I am at it. So
Okay.
mhm.
Are you in the firearms business?
I am not. I've probably got less sponsors than most people think, and at least as of right now, none of it's actually for money. It's just for products and match sponsorships, that kind of a thing. So, want to get into training at some point. I have plans on getting into competition training and just basic weapon handling training. But that's kind of down the line. There's a lot of steps I need to take before that, like getting NRA certified, getting insurance. It's a whole process and journey. So
Yeah.
I need to step into that soon. But that's just in the plans.
Okay. Now,
Mhm.
so what then does what does your training look like throughout the year? And how does it fluctuate with matches? And two, what does 2024 look like for you match schedule wise?
So that's actually a really interesting one right now. So training wise, there was a long period in time where it was just whenever I could happen to make it. It wasn't as big of a priority in the earlier years for me. I just wanted to, but I wasn't taking it as seriously in the first couple of years. It was more of a fun hobby. But when I started to like took a class, realized I could start taking this more seriously and be really good. Um, Dry fires definitely. If I have a very specific thing I'm leading up to, it's an everyday thing for sure, of varying amounts per day. I think burning yourself, it's really easy to burn yourself out. And I'm an individual that tends to lean towards the burning out really fast because I just
So you're
overdo something.
obsessive.
Yeah, you could say
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
But so leaning towards, if I don't want to do something, I don't do it. So there's some days I just don't dry fire. If I'm leading up to something, I just need a little mental break or whatever. But typically, if there's a match coming up that I really care about, it'll be a couple hours a day. Um, I have a backyard set up that I live at home, so that's one big asterisk to why I can do all this. But we have a decently sized backyard that we're not using for anything else. So I have our wall has lined with some targets that are varying sizes and shapes, and I have some water barrels that I set up that I can do manipulations around. That's where the majority of my dry fire happens. And then it gets kind of brutal when it's hot because that's in the backyard and it's 120 sometimes. So sometimes I just suck it up. Sometimes I just stay inside and do more limited dry fire. Dry fire is the biggest one. Then I'm trying to hit the range. I'm pretty consistently at the range every week if I can help it. I'll have the whatever weekend match we're shooting because again I'm in Arizona, so I'm blessed to be able to more or less shoot as much as I want, match schedule wise. So I'll have typically a local 3-gun rifle or USPSA match every Saturday. Um, there's a lot of my friends that shoot Saturday and Sunday. I've got church responsibilities that I volunteer for and stuff on Sundays. I play in keyboards in our worship ministry, so I'm typically my Sundays are taken, but that's honestly a good thing because I would probably burn myself out way faster on shooting if I was shooting Sundays too, which I definitely would. Um, but usually there's a weekend match every week, and every other week I'd say there's a midweek match, like on a Thursday or a Wednesday that I go to, and then Mondays are my typical training days. There's a local range that I go to, Rio Salado, that I have good connections with, and I can train there pretty consistently on Mondays. And then I have all my shooting buddies that are usually with me on Mondays too. So it just makes it a good like kind of guys night out, hanging out and getting my training done that I want to. Um, but it's not as high of a round count as a lot of other people's. I'd say my round count live fire, depending on what I have coming up, is probably 200, 300 rounds on average. And then leading up to a match, it might get up to like 400, 500 in a really big, and that's usually for pistol. In a super deep training, I'd say 500 is the most I ever get in. Um, but I tend to tailor it specifically to whatever major matches I have coming up. So for example, the 2-gun match that I had for PCSL wasn't touching my shotgun, didn't care about it. I only care about whatever the next big thing is that I'm doing. So I would shoot it for funsies if I felt like it, but I wouldn't be like training on it at all. So pretty primarily pistol is kind of the majority of my training. I'd say 85%. Just because it's the easy, what would you say? It's the fastest deteriorating skill, I would say. And it's the highest skill cap. So the gains to be had there, I think, are the biggest comparatively to shotgun or rifle. And it's also the easiest and cheapest to train. So there's that too. So it's just a double reason to train that more than anything else. Rifle, probably 7%, shotgun 7%. Dry fire, shotgun ends up being a lot more, which is the quad loading if I'm getting used to that again. And it's typically just whatever I feel like I need to work on more. That ended up being a really long-winded answer. Sorry. I feel like I kind
No,
of bounced back and forth between live fire, dry fire, and all that. But
yeah, but no, that's good.
mhm. And then you asked about match schedule. So it's definitely not official yet, and I don't want to break any there's no NDAs I signed or anything. But a World Shoot is coming up, and as of right now, I secured the alternate slot for the men's open team, which is essentially they'll be sending 5 people for each division, and four people are on the team. One's an alternate as a backup, just in case something happens, like someone's guns don't show up in the plane, someone's guns blow up and they can't use them anymore. I don't know if like someone DQ'd if they would sub in because technically they showed up for the match. I don't know how that works, but essentially I'm the first backup, so they send me two. So pretty much up until early August, my training is going to be primarily just rifle, so which is a big shift for me because usually it's just pistol with a little bit of shotgun and rifle, which is kind of the explanation for the 18-inch gun, for the load workup I just talked about a little bit ago, for all of that.
Right.
And then there's actually a match early March that I have coming up that I'm trying to get my ducks in a row for. So the schedule is actually a lot thinner due to that. Last year was pretty big in the schedule. There were probably 7 or 8, maybe even 9 major matches. But this one, this year, I should say, I have a rifle match, an IWI rifle challenge, I think as it's called, in North Carolina. That's the second weekend of March. And then the third weekend of March is Superstition, just my local 3-gun big major match. I'm not actually taking that one as seriously as I have the last 3 years, partially because I won my division last year, which was a big goal of mine. That was like my first, like, kind of like biggest hopes and dreams realized sort of thing in the last 3 years that I got. So after getting it, it's not as big of a deal to me. I still want to take it seriously. But I'm still shooting it because it's a local major. Like, I'm not just going to skip out on that. But other than that, I think those are the only 2 bigger matches I'm shooting before the World Shoot in August. I think I'm just pretty much devoting to training. If there's another rifle match that might pop up that I want to shoot, I might do that. But I dropped out of Texas 3-gun. I'm not going to shoot Rocky Mountain 3-gun like I did last year. It's actually the same weekend as World Shoot, so I'm obviously not shooting that one. But the only other matches I have planned are Memorial 3-gun. That one's kind of I don't think I ever want to miss that match. It's such a fantastic match. And PCSL, because I've got really good ties to the group that runs that match. Max is really great. It's a great match. It's a lot of fun and it's closer to me, so I'm going to do that one. But past that, I'm not sure.
All right. So, Rifle World Shoot, you said in August?
Yep. Second weekend in August, I think. It's actually,
Okay.
I shouldn't say weekend because it's actually a whole week long match. So it's not either end, it's the whole thing.
Right.
But
And it's in a climate that's almost exactly the same as Arizona.
Yeah, Finland. It's like
Yeah,
super
Finland.
super
Right.
hot, super miserable all the time. It's totally
Dusty and arid. Yeah.
yeah, totally the same. Yeah.
Right.
Walk in the park. Uh,
uh,
yep.
um, so, I mean, okay. So, have you traveled outside of the U.S. with weaponry?
Nope. And that's going to be a whole thing. Pretty much everything about going to that match is going to be a first for me, whether it's IPSC shooting, just a rifle match. Actually, well, I'll have the match in March that's just a rifle match. But flying out of the country, figuring out how to get ammo there. I think I'm importing ammo. Like you can't even just mail your ammo like you usually do at 3-gun matches. And it's too much ammo to fly with, and the laws are sketchy enough that it's like if you get your ammo confiscated, cool. You just wasted 6 months
Done.
of training and like cool. That's it, I guess. So I'm not risking that. Um
Have you reached out to Becky Yackley yet?
I talked with her a little bit,
Okay.
and as the day comes nearer and nearer, I'm going to be reaching out to a lot of the other people that hypothetically are on the unannounced team for now about like what their plans are and how they have. I think I have a plan for ammo. I don't want to disclose because it's another buddy that's
Oh no.
we're trying to keep the group small, but I think I know what I'm doing there. And then past that, I have the Airbnb reserved. Don't know the flight yet. Don't know how rental cars work. I have to do all that, so it's all new to me for sure. So
Yeah, I mean, I've been overseas, but Uncle Sam always paid the bill, and
right,
I didn't have to worry about
your schedule was
getting.
pretty determined.
Yeah, and I could take whatever they wanted me to have,
Mm-hmm.
so it
Yep,
was easy.
yep.
Uh, but I mean, she had put out some blog posts before the Pistol World shoot, and I
Mm-hmm.
was like, wow, this is pretty remarkable. So she's a
Mm-hmm.
hell of a resource for traveling over. I mean, they've done it so much that it's like she
Mm-hmm.
knows all the little tricks and tips and
Yep.
everything else. So I always ask people, have you spoken with Becky yet?
Yeah.
Because
No,
she's
and I'll
like an
definitely.
encyclopedia for international travel.
I heard from one friend, I think Bobby, that I was talking to, that she was doing a lot of research into Finland, and she was gonna either post it or just like reach out to people that are going or be free to talk to. So I'm definitely going to reach out to her in a little bit and see what her plans are and like what she has for tips and tricks. So that's a good call for sure.
Yeah, I
I'm
even
definitely
learned
the
from.
whole thing. I'm going to be leaning on people that are more experienced than I do. So
Yeah, I would too. I'd be
Mhm.
a little paranoid that either my ammo would get confiscated, or my gun would get,
Mhm.
something. As I learned from Linda when I had her on, that her and Max had their PCCs
Mhm.
confiscated coming back.
Yep.
I was like, oh my gosh, terrible.
Yeah. It's.
That's
I'm
the
not looking
worst.
forward to that part, but
The
it
only
is what it
thing
is.
worse than that is ending up in jail yourself.
Right.
That
In
would be
another
the only.
country that you don't speak the
Yeah,
language. That's sounds
right.
like a fun time.
And you don't know how to get a hold of the embassy.
You're right.
Oh God. So yeah, I'm with you there.
Hmm.
So we spoke a little bit the last time about goals. I know you said you want to win a world shoot rifle, shotgun, pistol.
Hmm.
Um, so after August,
Hmm.
so apparently you're doing the PCSL after
Hmm.
that. But what does your focus change to after come September?
I think first thing I'm focusing on is just making sure I have like just the kind of rough skills I need for 3-gun again because I think memorials before PCSL, and I want to defend my title in memorial as best I can because I won modified division this last year. So I definitely want to do good at that match again. So I think probably just getting my 3-gun skills up to speed again as fast as I can in that regard. So probably won't need to do anything rifle wise because I probably won't want to look at a rifle after August, but just shooting a lot of pistol, getting that skill back up to speed, and then just making sure I still know how to quad load a shotgun and aim it relatively fast, getting that back up. Yeah, and then going to PC as soon as Memorial would be done. Probably drop the shotgun, get used to shooting. I imagine my hit factor rifle's still going to be pretty up to snuff from 6 months of training. So probably we'll just shift to just pistol training for PCSL. So that's the rough plan, but it's definitely very free flowing and just whatever I feel like doing or whatever I feel like I need to work on at the time. So it could change, but
So this year is rifle, next year is pistol,
mhm.
the year after must be shotgun.
Yep. And I think long term, there's a lot of it's a very long term goal. It's not even something that I have in mind that I'm gonna get done in the next, like, I'm gonna win the next three. Like, I don't, winning one in one lifetime is just an entire, like, um life pursuit for a lot of people. So I'm not even gonna act like that's a realistic goal. I'm not gonna act like it's a feasible goal that I ever could get done, but it's just a kind of like, hey, this is kind of, pipe dream. Everything aligns and I get to do exactly what I want and my life turns out exactly how I want. This would be what I want. Um the harder part is a lot of financial stuff and commitments with all of that, because it gets real expensive real fast. And I could lose my job and not have the financial means to support doing this anymore, and I have to stop. So there's a lot of variables. um but I think in general, I think right now I'm just trying to gain experience. I'm not even going to act like um I have a good idea of if I'm going to win rifle or not. I'd like to podium. I think that's a realistic goal for me at this point, and even then, that's a really ambitious goal. But there's guys like Jarko and Rain and is his name Kimmy? I think I can't remember who won the last one. The the shorter JP shooter. All three of those guys, they've been doing this specific style of shooting way longer than I have. So even if I just can kind of score close to them, it would be amazing. Um, yeah.
Okay. Would you suffice being on the podium as a team member on the
Yeah,
team?
no, being on the podium as on the team would be super cool too. I don't want to put any stake in that right now because that would also hinge on one of them having to drop out as of right now, because I'm not technically on the four of the official team, so I'm not going to be participating in any team scoring as far as that goes. But it would be cool.
I
Um,
just meant within your entire shooting career.
oh,
Would you
uh,
be happy being on the podium as a team member?
oh, of course. I think as far as the individual goal goes, though, I think I have in mind winning overall as an individual. Um, Winning all three of those, it would. I mean, you know, being on the even just being on the team for all three would be an achievement. Let alone winning individual. Because I don't even know if there's a lot of people who have done all three um, and done good at all three. So, and it gets a little messy with. I don't think roughly the plan for me, at least how I see it happening, doing rifle this year. I don't think I'm going to be doing pistol this upcoming one, just because there's so many USPSA as they're running it right now. There's so many more pre-qualifiers for pistol world shoot because there are so many more pistol matches. Jeremy
Right.
Gresham's doing good work with USPSA, and I don't know if he's working specifically with IPSC on trying to standardize the rifle and shotgun side of it more, because typically what's supposed to happen is there's qualifying matches throughout the year leading up to all these matches for the actually or 3 years leading up to all these matches, and they can just select based off of that. But because USPSA doesn't run rifle or shotgun matches hardly ever, in fact, I don't even know if they ever have, other than USPSA multi-gun once a year. There's no qualification. It's just kind of pick the people they think are going to be best based on XYZ factors. There's no official, like, you won this major match, so you get 10 points. You won you got second in this major match, etc. But with pistol, there
Okay.
is, because there's so many, and I haven't participated in a lot of them. So I don't think making it to Worlds this coming one, I think it's South Africa, is a realistic goal. And I think getting this experience under my belt and then processing it, going back to kind of the normal 3-gun circuit and kind of being able to apply those skills, and then kind of reapproaching it again in a couple years or 3 years is probably going to be the best approach for me. But that's just a very rough idea of what I think could happen. God's got other plans, so we'll see.
Okay. All right. So it looks like you've got a gaming headset on there.
Oh yeah,
You
actually, this is the headset I use for playing keyboards at church. Funny enough, and I use it for gaming too. So
okay?
mhm,
But it also looks like your webcam's pretty solid. Do you stream?
mhm. I don't stream, unfortunately. There was actually this is oh god, this is not dating myself, but giving away a lot of information. There was a period when I was in college. I think it was when I was 17 or 18. I streamed full time for a year because it's what I wanted to try it, and I had the free time. That's a very long segment of my life and like a fun side story, but didn't end up working out for marketing reasons and burnout reasons, and it was a fun period of my life that I definitely don't regret, but don't do it anymore. So, and that was a while, that was 10 years ago at this point. I mean, it wasn't even, no, it was Twitch when I started, but when I was watching, it was Justin.tv. So that was even before Twitch was big. Twitch was the only one in the in the area, so to speak. That was before YouTube was doing streaming. That was before, it was a while ago, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So,
Right.
but not for very long.
So when you play video games, what are you playing?
I am playing. I will probably be hopping onto Escape from Tarkov with a few buddies right after this, right after we're
Escape
finished
from
with this.
who?
Escape from Tarkov. So if you haven't heard of that game, I need to come up
You're
with a
old.
succinct way. No, not at all. It's a very niche game that has a very cult following. I need to come up. I answer this question actually so often that I should have a more succinct way to kind of sum up the game, but it's very realistic in terms of the gunplay, how your character um, takes damage and moves around, and just the mechanics of how he interacts with the map. Um, you've got gear that you bring into the raid, so to speak, and depending on the map that you're going into, there can be anywhere from like 5 to I think 15 players, all on varying sizes of teams. There's no specified like I'm running by myself, so everyone else is running by myself. You're just going to run into whoever you run into. Different quests and objectives you have to complete. You'll spawn on one edge of the large map, and you'll have to work your way through to the other side while other teams are doing their objectives and working your way through. You can choose to avoid everyone. You can choose to try to fight and kill everyone. But if you die, you lose the gear that you brought in. So it's very punishing in that aspect. Because you can just be broken, run out of gear, and then be forced to like live off of scraps until you find enough stuff to kind of start making your way back. Um,
Wow.
but very long progression. It's just fun to play with friends. The gunplay is also some of the best in any game that I've seen, and it gets so into the details of assembling the guns that I feel like I'm building a rifle like I did when I put together my 18-inch. Like, you'll have to put a gas block on this one, and this gas block doesn't work because it interacts with this rail and it doesn't fit. And you can't mount this scope because you don't have this height riser for this. And if you mount
For
this
the love
scope,
of God.
yeah,
This is not fun. This
it
is work.
so it's the skill curve is more like a cliff that you just have to jump off of. So anyone that's just trying to get into it, it's very borderline impossible. But for those of us that are into it, it's just kind of like it's spoiled every other game because we're so into it, if that makes sense. So
Okay. Now, I'm not, I just, the only game I've really ever played is Call of Duty. So,
okay, yeah,
um, but the reason I ask that is, well, number one, I mean, your webcam's been clear the entire time.
hmm
The clarity is very good. Your mic very good. All of that. So that's why I
hmm
was asking about the
yeah.
streaming. But the reason I asked about the video games is, have you played around with the Ace virtual reality?
I I'm trying to remember. I did one at Shot Show that I don't think it was the Ace one. It was the projector one that I messed with at Shot Show. The something laser training. But I have a friend Carson Herding that got a hold of one, and I'm definitely going to have to go to his
Oh,
house and
okay.
mess with it sometime. So I heard good things. It seems really
Nope.
cool.
Don't do it.
It just absorbs your whole world.
It's like crack.
Yeah, I
It's
believe it.
I tell you what, I played with it for about 10 minutes at Prairie Fire,
Hmm.
and because they were there. And when I put it on, I was like, okay, I'm in my mind, I'm like, okay, it's kind of like you wear goggles, but it's Wii. It's Wii
Hmm.
with goggles.
Sure.
And then I started shooting. I'm like, this is nothing like Wii. This is
Yeah.
legit.
Do they
And then
have
you realize your grip matters, your trigger control matters.
yeah,
You're like, oh, wait a minute. This is
yeah.
legit.
Do they have what's the how does the recoil get involved with it? Because I heard they have something that you feel,
In the
but
game, there is a little bit of recoil, but
mhm.
really, I'll be honest with you, you don't need it.
Okay.
Because if you're not gripping that gun well, the grip module is not a gun; it's just a grip module,
Right, right,
and
right.
then the controller sits on top. But if you are not gripping it like you would be shooting live ammunition,
Mhm.
that gun will move. Those sights will move. So I was like, I put it up there. I'm like, whoa, this dot's all over the place.
Yeah.
So I ended up cranking down, cranking down, cranking down.
Mhm.
And then I was shooting so much for so long and gripping so tight that my support hand was sliding forward
Okay.
on the grip. So now you'll see people are putting different things like skateboard tape and other stuff on
Mhm.
their grip
Like they
to
would with a real gun.
like a real
Yeah.
gun.
That's cool.
Man, it was amazing. After 10 minutes, you're like, oh yeah, if you like Tim Herron had created,
Mhm.
he just took an extra belt he had laying around and an old SIG holster he had, and now he has an actual rig so he
Okay,
can
that's
go from the
devoted
draw
to yeah.
and everything. Yeah. And I've had a couple of people on now. The amount of virtual trigger pulls you can have compared
Mhm.
to live and all the stuff they have. You can do group shooting, you can do drills, you
Mhm.
can do movement stages. I mean, just so they had movers, actual movers.
Yeah.
Then they had swingers, bobbers with activators, Texas stars.
Mhm.
Everything you could think of was in that game. And you can play virtually with your friends. So you guys can all
Right.
get
That's
on and
that seems
shoot
like the cooler
stages.
part for sure.
Yeah. But the thing is, you're still getting something out of it. It's pretty amazing.
Right. That's tempting, man. I
Yeah. If
like
you're
you're
into
saying.
video games and you can do that virtual reality real stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
oh, this is terrible. Terrible.
Yeah, I might have to stay away from it based on your warning, but
Yeah.
I'm sure I'm going to try
Just
it at
go to
some point
Carson's
soon.
house to play
Mhm.
with it and then come back. Leave it
Yep,
there.
for sure.
Leave it there.
For sure.
Well, AJ, that's what I had. Was there anything that you wanted to mention that we talked about?
um, no, I just hanging out talking. Good. I just love talking about shooting, man. I could talk about it all day till my voice goes numb. So
Me too.
it's
I
you
mean,
know,
Jarrett Heinrich and I were on for 4 hours talking.
jeez, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I might have to take a break at that point because my voice would start to actually go out.
Well,
But
my bladder would scream at me. So
that too, yeah.
between coffee and Monster, it'd be like, look, we got to take a break.
Yep, definitely.
All right. Well, I'm going to post a link to your Instagram in
Okay.
the show notes. So is there anything else you want me to add to that, or is that good?
No, Instagram's good. That links to all my other stuff, and I don't have a
Yeah, you
lot of
got your
social media,
sponsors.
so my sponsors are on my Instagram. So
Well, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for the conversation.
yeah, no problem. Anytime. It was a fun talk. I'm glad to be part.
Until next time.
Don't be a little bitch.
Yeah.